All right, so we've got Mike Riversdale's CV and website here, and wow, just wow. Talk about a buzzword buffet.
Yeah, someone did their homework.
It's like Agile and Scrum change management. They all had a big party and invited every buzzword in the dictionary.
Every single one RSVP'd
Hmm.
and brought a +1.
Exactly. But, our listeners, they don't just want to hear us rattle off jargon. They
Yeah.
want to know what all actually means. Like, can Mike actually, walk the walk, not just talk the talk?
Right. Anyone can toss around buzzwords. The real question is, can he back it up?
And what's really got me intrigued right from the jump, his CV starts with this Maori proverb, hitangata, hitangata, hitangata.
Interesting. I've never seen a CV open with a proverb before, let alone one in Te Reo Maori.
Right. It's definitely not your average resume opener.
Not at all.
So for those of us who aren't fluent in Maori,
Oh.
what does it actually mean?
It translates to, it is people, it is people, it is people.
It is people. It is people. It is
Yeah.
people. Okay.
It's all about emphasizing the importance of people.
So he's putting that front and center on his CV, which in the tech world can be kind of rare,
For sure, tech can get very focused on the tech itself, the hardware, the software, all that. And sometimes it feels like we forget about the humans who are actually using all of it.
Exactly. So instead of launching into a robotic list of skills, it's like he's saying, hey, remember those humans using all this tech?
Yeah.
They matter to me, which is a pretty cool message. But before we get too deep into interpretations, let's break down some of those buzzwords you mentioned. Because you're right, the jargon is THCK.
Oh, yeah. It's a bit of a minefield out there.
So when we see terms like agile coach or scrum master plastered all over Mike's resume, what's really going on there? Like, what do those even mean in plain English?
Okay, so imagine a team of developers, right? They're working on a new app, feature, something shiny and new. Agile is like their flexible roadmap.
Flexible roadmap.
Yeah, it lets them adapt to changes quickly instead of getting stuck in a rigid plan.
Yeah.
Waterfall method, all that.
Right. Been there. Hated that.
Exactly. Agile is all about moving fast, iterating, being flexible.
Okay, so that's agile. What about the scrum master? They always sounded kind of intimidating to me.
The Scrum Master, they're like the conductor of the orchestra, making sure everyone's in sync and playing the right tune at the right time. Or maybe a better analogy would be a sports coach.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
I like that. So instead of yelling at players, they're removing roadblocks and keeping everyone on track.
Exactly. They're there to clear the path so the team can focus on what they do best, which is building that awesome new app feature, whatever it may be.
Okay, that's a MUCH better mental image than whatever was going on in my head. It's starting to make sense why those terms are so popular. I mean, who doesn't want a smooth, adaptable team? But you know me, I'm all about the specifics. Mike also mentions change management quite a bit.
Yeah.
Can you give us a real-world example of that in action?
Sure. Imagine a company switching over to a whole new software system.
Ooh, big change.
Huge. And you know how much people love change.
Said no one ever.
Exactly. That's where change management swoops in to save the day. A good change manager, like Mike might be, anticipates the challenges, preps everyone for the switch, and helps them adapt to the new normal.
So instead of everyone freaking out and hitting reply all in a panic, a change manager is the calm in the storm. That actually sounds incredibly valuable, especially in the tech world, where it seems like there's a new system every 5 minutes.
Right. It's about making those transitions as painless as possible for everyone involved.
Okay, so we've got Agile Scrum change management,
Mm-hmm.
all starting to make a bit more sense now. But it's not just about the terms themselves. It's about how Mike has applied them throughout his career. And looking at his CV, it reads like a world tour of different industries. Film, energy, government. That guy's been everywhere.
He has. It's not a linear path at all, which is what makes it so interesting.
So is this someone who jumps on every passing trend? Or is there a deeper connection between these seemingly random experiences? It's like a big puzzle.
It is a puzzle, and we're just starting to put the pieces together.
One thing that really jumps out to me, Mike, was a cloud computing evangelist before cloud computing was even a thing.
Way back in the day.
Practically the Stone Age of tech.
Mhm.
It takes some serious foresight to be that far ahead of the curve.
It does. Most people were probably still clinging to their floppy disks back then.
Probably.
Huh.
So to be not just aware of, but actively championing this completely new technology, it suggests someone who's not just keeping up with trends, but actively seeking them out.
Right. Absolutely. He wasn't afraid to embrace the unknown and sell others on its potential, even when it was still a pretty out there concept.
He was whispering about the cloud revolution before anyone else even heard the rumbles. That's impressive. But you've got me thinking, was he just excited about the technology itself? Or was he already considering the human side of things back then? Like, how would this impact the way people work? The challenges it might bring?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And this is where we need to go beyond just the bullet points on his CV.
Dig a little deeper.
Exactly. For example, he mentions spearheading the implementation of agile methodologies across multiple departments, and not just in IT, which is interesting.
So he wasn't just preaching Agile from his tech silo. He was actually spreading the gospel, trying to get the whole company on board.
It seems so. And that takes serious people skills, not just technical expertise.
Right. You got to be able to explain it to the marketing team, to the finance folks.
Everyone. And in a way that makes sense to them, not just a bunch of tech jargon.
Totally. And, speaking of connecting with people, let's talk about that Access Granted podcast. He founded NC's #1 IT podcast. That's huge.
That's no small feat.
It screams excellent communicator, wouldn't you say?
For sure. It takes a special kind of person to host a successful podcast. You need to engage listeners, break down complex topics, and keep them coming back for more. Those are invaluable skills for anyone, but especially for a leader.
Especially in tech, where you're often dealing with complex ideas that you need to communicate clearly to a non-technical audience.
All the time.
Yeah.
And not just communicate, but inspire and motivate as well.
So we got the Agile coaching, the change management, now the podcasting. It's all starting to add up. But then there's Hack Miramore, this community tech group he co-founded. That seems like a whole different side of Mike.
It does. It speaks to a passion for tech that extends beyond the corporate world. Building a community from scratch takes a lot of dedication, a genuine desire to share knowledge and connect with others.
It's giving back, paying it forward.
Exactly. It suggests he's not just in it for the paycheck. There's a real passion there.
Which is always nice to see. But you've got me wondering now, could this also be a potential red flag? I mean, we're seeing someone incredibly active on multiple fronts. Is he spreading himself too thin? Could his focus be a little scattered?
That's a valid concern. It's a classic double-edged sword. A diverse range of experiences can be a huge asset, but it can also mean someone's not as deeply rooted in any one area.
So the question is, does he have the time and energy to truly commit to our company and our needs?
It's something to definitely consider.
Okay, so we've decoded the buzzwords, traced Mike's career journey across various industries, and even unearthed some intriguing side projects. We're getting a much clearer picture of who he is. So, what's the verdict so far? What are the key takeaways about Mike at this stage in our deep dive?
Based on everything we've discussed, Mike appears to be a highly experienced and adaptable individual with a clear passion for technology and a strong track record of success. He's comfortable leading teams, managing complex projects, and importantly, he seems to genuinely value the human element in everything he does. But
there's always a but, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's always a but lurking somewhere. But it's a good but, right? We're seeing a lot of positives here.
Oh, absolutely. Don't get me wrong. Mike's CV and website paints a very compelling picture.
He's got the skills, the experience, the drive to connect with people, which, let's be honest, isn't always a given in the tech world. But we've also uncovered some potential questions, like whether he might be spreading himself too thin with all these projects. It's a balancing act, right?
It always is. And it's funny you should mention that, because there's one little detail in Mike's materials that really jumped out at me. It's on his CV, actually. He includes this quote from a former CEO. And it's pretty bold.
Oh, the controversial quote. Spill the tea.
It is. The CEO basically said that they'd made Agile redundant.
Whoa, hold on. Made Agile redundant. Most people would bury that kind of feedback in the deepest, darkest corner of their LinkedIn profile, never to see the light of day again. Why on earth would he include that?
Right. It's a head-scratcher, for sure. On the one hand, it could be a sign of incredible transparency.
Like he's not afraid to show the bumps in the road.
Exactly. He's not shying away from the fact that agile methodologies, while valuable, aren't some magical cure-all. Sometimes things don't work out. And it takes a certain level of confidence to own that.
To say, hey, I tried this, it didn't go perfectly, and here's what I learned.
Exactly. It shows a willingness to learn and adapt, which is crucial in any field, but especially in tech.
So it's not necessarily a red flag, more like a talking point. Something to bring up in an interview, maybe.
Precisely. It's an opportunity to dig deeper. Ask him about that experience. What went wrong? What did he learn? How would he approach things differently now?
Because anyone can say they're agile. But to see how someone handles those inevitable setbacks, that tells you a lot more.
A lot more. It reveals their problem-solving skills, their resilience, their ability to learn from their mistakes.
And maybe even their sense of humor, depending on how they tell the story.
Right. A little self-awareness goes a long way.
It really does.
Yeah.
So, we've decoded the buzzwords. We've analyzed the career trajectory. We've even psychoanalyzed a quote from a former CEO.
Well,
What's the final verdict? Is Mike Riversdale the tech unicorn we've been searching for?
I'd say he's definitely worth a closer look. He's got the experience, the skills, and that crucial human-centric approach that's so important. But, as always, the real test is in the face-to-face interaction.
The coffee date, the Zoom call, the awkward handshake.
Exactly. Pay attention to how he talks about his experiences, what excites him, what lessons he's learned along the way. Those are the nuggets that will tell you if Mike is the right fit more than any buzzword ever could.
Well said. So to our listeners out there, you've heard our deep dive into Mike Riversdale's background. Now it's your turn to do your own digging. Ask the tough questions and see if this tech-savvy, community-building, podcast-hosting, agile enthusiast is the perfect fit for your team. Until next time, folks, happy recruiting.